Free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a
Free
world.
Energy Now. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergynow.net and get a past lineup of speakers as well as see who's coming down the pike and see our call-in numbers if you're listening live so you can join us during the question and answer session. Today we have a special program. It's a 2-hour, possibly even 3-hour special. We can run 3 hours if necessary. We're going to try and get it in 2. The first session, the first half of the show will be me interviewing Jack Durban. Second section of the show will be calls and question and answer from a forum who's trying to replicate a device he was involved with more than a decade ago. The device is called Stephen Mark's Toroid Power Generator, also known as a TPU. This was a solid-state device that produced copious amounts of energy, free energy from the environment. You wouldn't see where it's coming from, but there was this donut-shaped device that was putting out all kinds of power. It was powering appliances, 100-watt light bulbs, and other things that couldn't possibly be powered by battery technology that was then available. The energy was coming from somewhere else, but there were no extension cords, no fuel, no visible energy source, yet there was powering these things. And now, more than a decade after his experience with this technology, during his glory days, well after the NDAs had expired, Jack Durban is ready to tell all. And so, Jack, thank you for joining us. We're glad you could come on.
Well, it's nice to be able to reach out to the guys that are in the trenches that have put in a lot of midnight oil trying to get this technology to work. And my main purpose in coming forward after all this time, well, first of all, an NDA did expire about 6 years ago, but I thought I would give Stephen plenty of time to resurface and potentially continue his efforts. But seeing that that did not occur, and the chances are that Stephen may not even be with us anymore, combined with the fact that I had a feeling that I could possibly lend a little bit of help to those who might be stuck somewhere in the development phase of the device.
And there is a large community of people, I would guess I'm not intimate to that group. I've been on the forum a few times, but I'm guessing that there are a few hundred people playing with that technology and a good several dozen who are really rolling up their sleeves trying to make this thing work and have been doing so for a number of years. And so a large segment of our audience today is going to be comprised of those people listening in to look for any nuggets that you might be able to bring forward that will help them get past some of the stoppages that they've run into, so that they can replicate this technology and finally get it out to the marketplace where it could really turn things around in terms of the price of energy, the availability of energy. It would just really revolutionize. It would be akin to the invention of fire, the discovery of fire, in terms of the turning the tide on an era of scarcity of energy to one of abundance. And so we really appreciate you coming on. And there's basically two audiences that we're talking to here. The first segment, I would like to kind of gear to the lay audience who maybe has not heard about this technology before. And then the second segment, we're going to address more of those people who are directly involved in that forum and have some very specific questions about how did this thing work. And so that's kind of what we want to accomplish with this show. Let's start out by asking, and we do have a whole list of questions that people have posted in preparation for this show. There's been a lot of interest in anticipation of this show. And again, we thank you for your courage in coming forward and taking this step. I'm sure today won't be the only time you'll be answering questions.
Well, I appreciate the term courage because as a seasoned inventor and scientist, product developer of 30 years, it's risky to come forward and say, yes, I witnessed this device and it did work, because everyone in my industry would think I'm a kook, but that's not important anymore. In other words, I have enough track record behind me now and enough products on the market, 21 patents, either issued or pending. I've already paid my dues in my industry. I'm highly respected, and I no longer care if I'm labeled as one of the few lucky witnesses to one of the biggest breakthroughs in history.
Yeah, and so I just want to say more along those lines, that it really is courageous for people who have a reputation to keep, so to speak, to go out into the fringe, so-called fringe, that of these technologies is supposed to be impossible, that defy the present laws of physics as we know them. But it's been people of such courage through history who have become the heroes, who are willing to go against the trend and introduce revolutionary new technologies, human flight being one of the best examples.
So what I'd like to do at this time, just so that I can develop a rapport with the listeners and to establish that I am real, that I paid my dues. I've been at this for a very long time. I've been an inventor since I was in high school and was designing engine blocks and all kinds of mechanical drawings long before then. I just had a knack for engineering. When I got into product development formally, I was fortunate enough to work with some top scientists, some rather well-known PhDs in various fields. And now to date, I have a couple hundred products on the market. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. The LED tennis shoes you see kids wearing all over, I invented that in 1979. Right after that, the lighted Frisbee, which these are all low-tech products, of course. But after that, the Gatekeeper locking shopping cart that is a huge success worldwide. It is a locking shopping cart that I designed a wheel that has a 15 kilohertz, or actually it's 8 kilohertz, I divided it in half, receiver in it that looks for a buried wire around the perimeter of a parking lot and then locks the cart up. Well, that sounds trivial, but the science that went into that technology to have it operate for 4 years or 15,000 lockups was substantial. So I have a lot of product in the optics industry, electro-optics, manufacturing. I automated the rocket nozzle assembly for the Titan and Shuttle mission programs for JPL, which was done through Rocketdyne in Chatsworth, California. So I'm very, very comfortable with prototyping, product development from scratch, new technologies where they existed not before. So I know what my fellow compatriots are going through right now in the development or the continuation of the Steve and Mark device, which I will get into further later, but Steve and Mark did not invent that device, nor can I say any current day inventors have. This device goes way back, and it's being introduced all over the world. In fact, there are, I shouldn't say introduced as in introduced to market, but introduced into the hands of developers, that this device goes way back into history, and this is not a new technology.
Yeah, we'll want to get into that a little bit more later. Now, since Stephen Marks was kind of the pivot point in this technology, there have probably been some million people who have seen his video on YouTube, a number of videos actually, where he's showing this thing powering different devices. One that most people have seen is in a very wealthy home. What is your role in Stephen's toroid project of a decade ago?
Okay, perhaps we could start off by stating that toroid is really of no significance in this design, in that the only reason why he built the devices on any circular device is because it was easy to wind, and it just so happens that the large unit, which I believe is 15 inches in diameter, I've seen 16, but I don't believe that's the case, that was actually wound on a stack of speaker mounts that came from the spheric audio line that I was also working with that later became Extreme Technologies. So The fact that it's toroidal is only indicative of its shape and geometry, having nothing to do with the topology of the orientation of the coils. In fact, the technology resembles a Tesla patent that was issued in 1888 that looks like it was cloaked by Tesla himself to possibly disguise the technology as a mechanical or more conventional type generator.
That patent number?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's in my files. In fact, I identified it very early in the process when I first witnessed the device that it looked familiar to me because I'm a big fan of Tesla, and it looked like one of his devices. It did issue in 1888, and I don't...
381970.
That sounds familiar. Anyway,
you gave in the email a couple of days ago.
Right, that's the one. So, where would you like to go from here? Because there's a very interesting story behind Steve and Mark, and I don't want to destroy his character in front of the world here, but you guys need to know the ones that are really fighting hard to get this technology out.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit later, and I do want to touch on that, but for the sake of the replicating audience, let's not spend too much time on that particular aspect. Where I'd like to go next is the question of how were you involved and how well did that technology work?
Okay, well, as a product developer, I had a shop over in Laguna Niguel, which is about 20 miles to the south of the Lemon Heights mansion where Stephen was set up. And his associate, in fact, we'll get into what that relationship was between Stephen and this gentleman later, but he reached me through the Yellow Pages of all places, because I haven't advertised there in probably 10 years since, but he reached me through the Yellow Pages, said he had a top-secret project that needed help, and we met at my office, and then before long, he disclosed to me that it was a free energy device. I had already seen quite a few technologies that failed. In fact, I was a clearinghouse for not only free energy technology, but alternative medical devices. I worked with Barry Lines with the Rife technology. In fact, we formed a company together before he had to hit the road because of FDA trouble. But I was used to seeing this technology before, and most all of them I don't want to call them frauds, because there was a lot of well-intentioned people that thought their technology did work, but they failed to stand up to testing. So anyway, after I met this gentleman, his name was Mercury Marilla. If anybody is intimately knowledgeable of Stephen, they'll recognize that name. It doesn't show up in any public documents, but he was a key player when it comes to being involved with Stephen in a personal way.
Anyway, how do you spell that? Mercury Marilla?
Yeah, it's spelling Mercury like the planet or the material, and then Marilla, M-A-R-I-L-L-A. He can be found in criminal records. You won't find much on him public records, but if you go into the California prison database, you'll find him there.
So he contacted you, and what was their request? Well,
the mission was... the first mission, actually, was to replicate the technology. But unlike, I saw some of the questions that were coming in on the board, and one gentleman, I believe it was Earl, asked the question, well, if you were given access to the technology, how come you couldn't duplicate it? Well, that wasn't the mission. The mission was to find a way to replicate the output or the ability to produce free energy by any other means other than what Stephen had developed. And at first, my thinking was that he was just trying to see if he covered all his bases, or if someone else completely outside from the cold could come in and get as far as he could, or replicate his findings, or perhaps find a way to have someone else do the dirty work because he was stuck at a particular place where I actually believe that most everyone is stuck now and still in the same place after 10 years. But I regress. He wanted me to actually come up with any type of technology, didn't care, but just to produce the same results. So we went into a mode of doing typical Tesla type of remote, primary, secondary type transmission, which is well known and very simple to do. And we even went into microwave and did